Studio Doors are open. Welcome once again. I'm your host, Jerry Dean Roberts, of ArmchairCinema.com. Here with the gold standard and co-hosts, the critic, dare I say legend, TalkMovie.com, Mr. Doug Heller. How the heck are you today, sir?
He's quite brave to show his shortcomings in front of a live studio, a live audience.
It's the first time that man will ever
David
give
Niven,
attention
I'm
by
not.
stripping off and showing his shortcomings.
David Niven, I am not. We are here to do our Best Picture
Rundown.
In the category of Best Picture at the 97th Academy Awards.
Can you believe it?
That's coming up on March the 3rd, 2025.
March 2nd.
March 2nd, 2025. And boy, howdy, is this a...
To let you know, we do this every year. This is our big Oscar blowout. But mostly what we do is we go one by one talking about the nominees for Best Picture.
And then we come back and talk about the show after.
Right. The downfall. And this year, I want to tell you, I've never seen a list of films so mixed, because most of these I just don't care about. There's a lot that I like, but most of these I'm just like, once the Oscars are over, I'm not gonna remember most of these. Now that's not to say that all of them. That doesn't count all of them, but there are a couple on here that I'm just like, what in the world? Because this was a year that I'll be honest with you, I caught up with a lot of older films.
Yeah.
Films from the 70s, films from the 30s, and I was catching up with those. And because our screening season, there was nothing, when we started getting screeners, there was not a whole lot that I was just jumping for joy about.
Yeah, there were some that I had heard about. Anora, definitely one of them, Complete Unknown. I had not even heard of The Brutalist until the Golden Globes.
I had not even heard of Emilia Pérez until the nominations came out.
I knew about it. Like, I think it was saved in my Netflix queue because it was a movie that wasn't in English and it came out in 2024. Yeah. And I was just kind of setting it aside to watch during nominations period. And I just didn't get to it. And then everything broke about it. And we'll get to it, but wow.
We'll get to it.
Wow. And, but,
the positive is that this is a year of a lot of different kinds of films.
Yeah.
It's not all costume dramas. It's not all... There's not a theme here.
No. Sci-fi, there's hardcore drama, there's a musical... there's
your standard Holocaust survivor. It's got to be your.
That's.
It's an important subject. Don't get me wrong, but
that's the second one on the list. We'll get to that quickly. We'll get to. We don't have to rush to The Brutalist because Lord knows The Brutalist doesn't rush for anyone else.
I can only hope this show will be shorter than The Brutalist. It would almost have to be. It'd have to be a hell of a conversation to go longer, but this year I think two of them being from Studio A24, which is notoriously stingy with screeners.
Yeah.
And we have to go to the theater. God help us.
I was genuinely annoyed with some of it that got sent because, Searchlight and 20th Century Studio, the ones that used to be Fox, would always send us good stuff. Netflix used to send us fucking bottles of wine. But
what was that movie? There was a movie with Olivia Colman a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You got a bottle of wine.
The daughter, something daughter, missing daughter, something.
The lost daughter.
Yeah, but for the last 2 years, they have sent nothing. Mm-hmm. They haven't even sent screener links.
The only ones that are consistent with the screeners is Neon. Neon sends a
Neon and Magnolia.
Neon sends a beautiful book.
Oh, I love their annual thing. I have those sectioned off on my movie shelf. Well,
Yeah.
I did when I had a movie shelf, and will when I have one again. That
I've got them all for the last 8 years.
Yeah, I keep them. I keep them all in a block because they are just gorgeously put together every year. There is every year they have more releases, and they have really good releases. Since
Quality stuff.
Yeah, since they distributed Parasite.
This year they did Anora.
This year they did Anora. The Seed of the Sacred Fig Tree in international feature.
But they'll throw something in there occasionally that's just kind of this cuckoo bird thing. They threw in a movie called Babes.
Yeah,
which is this bizarre comedy about
this fun little comedy. I like.
It's not serious at all.
It's from just, wasn't it from it's from the women that did Broad City on Comedy Central.
Yeah.
That was fun. I liked last year or 2 years ago. They put in that really awesome Andy Samberg time loop movie, Palm Springs. I loved the hell out of that. That was so much fun. I cherish that one. That one was a big find for me. I was happy about that one. And
I had to
Colossus or
I had to abandon this year my my Oscar death race, which is my attempt to try and see every single thing that's nominated, and I just haven't had the time this year because I've had other things to do.
You know, when the OFCS did their awards, the only Best Picture nominee I think I didn't get to was Emilia Pérez.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was
we'll get to that.
I think that was nominated for Best Picture. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Is that nominated for international?
Yeah.
That's where it's going to win.
And I hope not. because I'm Still Here and Flow are profoundly better films.
We're going to go alphabetically. If I wrote these down alphabetically. And the first film we're going to talk about is a movie you just mentioned. It's called Anora.
This thing.
Do not, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen Anora, for the love of God, don't watch it with your mother.
No.
Or your kids in the room.
There's so much just graphic nudity.
Can I just say, this is the year in which they took the no nudity clause and threw it out the window.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm not complaining.
Anora, The Brutalist, The Substance. Emilia Pérez, I think, had a little bit in it.
Yeah.
I mean...
I'm not complaining.
No, it's not a bad
But I'm
thing.
telling you, Anora...
And here's the thing that I actually appreciate. Not really in any kind of a I'm happy to see it kind of a thing, but I'm happy for the equality that there are actually as many men and as women showing their bits and pieces.
We're getting it from both sides.
I like the parody. Parity, not parody.
Well, Anora might as well have been a French film.
It really could have been.
This is from Sean Baker, who I do not know Sean Baker. He made one previous film called Red Rocket that I never saw.
Dude, he did Tangerine.
Did he do Tangerine? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He did Tangerine. He did The Florida Project. He did...
Oh, yeah. Bad research.
What else? You know, he's done a whole bunch.
Okay.
And he's been around since 2000. He's been directing for about 25 years now. But yeah,
I almost kind of wish, because as much as I love and appreciate Demi Moore, I think this actress would win the Oscar if it weren't for Demi Moore.
I'm surprised the only major award, what's her name, Mickey Madison.
Mm-hmm.
The only major award she hasn't picked up for this movie is the SAG.
Yeah.
Yeah. which Demi Moore took.
Did you get the Golden Globe?
Yeah. No, Demi Moore got the Golden Globe too. That's right.
Yeah. Not that the Golden Globe means anything,
but she's gotten basically every other major, award for it.
She could upset.
She very well could.
But
I'll tell you what, I would not be upset if Demi Moore finally got an Oscar.
I wouldn't either, and I think she will, because everybody in town knows her.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be for her. I also, despite it being for Emilia Pérez, I'll be happy if Zoe Saldana wins. But
supporting.
Yeah, but her being nominated in general, I think, is the both of them being nominated, Demi Moore and Zoe Saldana, because both of them have basically been told by their producers that they're eye candy. They're not really serious actors. But I've always wondered why Zoe Saldana never took off as a dramatic actress, because when she started, she was a powerhouse, and then they started relegating her to action pictures.
She's been in 3 major franchises.
Yeah.
And, Avatar, Star Trek, and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
But Anora, this was a movie that came, just like most of the Best Picture winners, or Best nominees, came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about it. Now, here's the funny thing. By the way, we're not observing spoilers. So I saw this movie without knowing anything about it. For the first hour,
mm-hmm.
I thought that this movie was just going to be about a lifestyle, because it is about a sex worker.
Yeah.
And it is really, she works in a club in New York, and she will take high-end money. She'll take money from high-end clients. And I thought that this was going to be about a girlfriend experience.
Right.
Because Mickey Madison, meets a guy in the club who is a spoiled rich kid. He's a Russian immigrant.
Yeah, he is the son. He's not an immigrant. He's here on vacation. He is the son of a Russian oligarch. His father is a big deal in the Russian government.
Big deal.
Yes. He's, an Elon Musk type figure, except he's actually legally working for the Russian government.
And I'm telling you, this movie shows him doing 2 things: fucking and playing video games.
That's essentially what. Oh, and smoking weed.
And she goes to this house where he is, and you don't know where this is going. They have sex, and then she comes back, and she keeps coming back, and she spends time with him. He's a fairly nice guy. I mean, he's all of 21.
Yeah, I mean, and she's like 23, so I mean, they're connecting, and they're the same, close to the same age, and they're having a lot of fun together. And honestly, with that amount of money, I would too.
And she keeps coming back, and I'm expecting this to turn out to be like a Pretty Woman, or maybe a. This is the movie that I imagine Pretty Woman should have been.
Right.
But he talks to her about marrying him.
And now
she is charmed by this.
She speaks Russian. She was brought.
She's half Russian.
Yeah, she was brought up. She learned Russian growing up, so she understands it better than she speaks it.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows exactly what they're saying, but she has trouble answering back.
They spirit off to Las Vegas for a weekend.
He says, "Let's get married."
And he says, "Let's get married." They get married in Vegas, and then
the whole thing turns on a dime.
This movie gets on a roller coaster ride that does not stop until it's over. This is After Hours on designer drugs. It's amazing because word gets back to the old man that he has buried this girl. And the old man sends his henchmen, hence sends basically Crusher and Loblo, to come into the house, to come in and twist their arms to get this thing annulled.
But not actual physical violence. It should be noted.
It turns that way.
But only because she would not stop assaulting them, because in her world, what was coming next wasn't going to be good for her.
Right.
In her world, she was about to be gang raped and probably killed and left for dead, or killed and left somewhere. So she starts fighting for her life because she thinks she's in great danger. And if you're looking at it from the opposite perspective, when you're looking at it from Igor's perspective, this really wonderful performance, Oscar nominated by Yura Borisov, all he wants to do is to just get her to sit down and be quiet so that they can talk and explain what's going on. But she
is screaming her head off.
Stop screaming and yelling and kicking and punching and biting. And
this is shot like a reality show.
Yeah.
Almost.
And
it's like it and it goes on way longer than you expect.
But not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way. But you get as frustrated as they are. Because it's like, okay, if everybody will settle down, we can work this out. But she feels she's being violated. They end up tying her up.
Right. She forces their hand to treat her the way that she expected they would be treating her.
Right.
They don't want to be doing this. And when the guy walks in, he's like, "What are you doing? Why is she tied up?" They're like, "Because she bit me."
And it should also be mentioned, Igor disappears.
Yeah.
The kid disappears.
That's Yvonne.
And Yvonne, excuse me. Yvonne disappears. And they go on this wild trip through the streets of New York.
Because he literally just runs out and leaves her there.
And you don't see him again until the end of the movie.
Much later, yeah.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening then is this very after-hours scouring of New York, trying to find this kid so that they can get this marriage annulled. And the guy that, as far as I can tell, is like a Russian Orthodox priest that doesn't particularly act like a priest, but again, he's Russian Orthodox, so what do I know?
So you never know.
So he thinks it's just about money, so he's like, well, this is just the way we see it, it's a green card marriage, and that usually, they get $10,000, we'll give you $10,000, and you get it annulled, and we just never have to talk about this again. I don't think she was there for the money. I think she was genuinely...
She wasn't there for the money.
She was swept up in the emotion of all of it, and she was genuinely taken with this kid.
At first, I mean, it was for the money.
Sure.
But then she kept going back, and you can see that they are lightly connecting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about the money, but it's all about perceptions, because what happens is Sean Baker, the director, does not ever demonize the sex worker trade. He does not ever do that.
He has told stories in this realm before, but notably Tangerine, which he also shot entirely on an iPhone.
Yeah.
and it looks great, honestly.
This is a better movie, though.
This is a better movie, although I love Tangerine. That was something else entirely.
But the perception from the family's mind is that she's a sex worker. It's all about the money.
Oh no, they don't call her sex worker. They're
I
Russian,
do, but they yeah.
they go old school with it, and
Yeah.
but those terms are not fair to what she's actually doing. So,
But at the same time, you understand her point of view.
absolutely,
But also at the same time, you understand their point of view.
absolutely. There,
So
see,
it's
no
very
one.
tricky that way.
The greatest thing is that no one here is wrong, except Yvonne.
Yeah.
Except the kid. He's the only one that is completely wrong through the whole
Yeah.
thing. Because everybody else is genuinely just trying to live their life. I was immediately on Igor's side
Yeah.
because from the moment she starts kicking, he's just holding her like, please stop, please,
Yeah.
we're not here to hurt you, please just stop. He wants nothing more than to just talk to her, and he ends up being the sweetest person to her that anyone could have imagined.
The ending of this movie is the most heartbreaking thing
Yeah.
I think I've seen ever. I'm not going to give it away, but
Yeah.
but I'll say even when we meet his mother, even when we meet Yvonne's mother, we know that she knows that how much money they have.
She's a
And she
sympathetic
knows
character.
how vulnerable her son is.
Yeah.
And she can look at this situation and she says, this woman works, has sex for money, therefore we have a lot of money and she wants it. That's why she married him.
Exactly.
She makes that. Nobody does the right thing here.
No.
And, well, she can size up the situation as any parent would. She's beautiful, she's young, she's a sex worker, she needs money, and that's the situation she's looking at. But it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it does not start where you think it's going to go.
No, it doesn't end where it starts.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any kind of lapse or anything. It is from beginning to end, it's a completely unique journey.
Yeah.
And I won't be upset when Sean Baker wins Best Director, and I really don't think I'll be upset if this takes Best Picture.
So, moving on to the next one. I'm going to tell you that I went into this movie not aware of the running time.
Yeah. I went into this
This is the Brutalist.
I went into this aware of only the running time.
I went into this, I did not know what it was about. Basically, the only thing I had seen from this movie was that image of him with a cigarette and the fireworks. And somehow I got the idea that it was based on the title. I thought it was a revenge thriller.
Well, based on the look of it and everything, I can see how that would go. But
and I swear this is the first movie since this is one of a handful of movies that I swear almost gave me lung cancer, because there is so much smoking in this movie.
Let me tell you something. let me. We're doing a separate episode on it because it just hit VOD and you didn't get a chance to see A Complete Unknown yet. But I just watched that today. Mm-hmm. I am a huge Bob Dylan fan. It became my favorite movie of the year. And they smoke less in that than they do in The Brutalist. And in the documentary, Don't Look Back, Dylan's actually reading a newspaper where it says, as he's puffing heavily on a cigarette. He smokes 80 a day, and he goes, "Christ, I'm glad I'm not me."
I sat down and I was glad that I had a lot of time on my hands that day because this is a long movie. This is 3 hours and 26 minutes long.
Yeah.
And
this is longer by a few minutes than Killers of the Flower Moon.
Directed by an actor.
Yes, actually,
Brady Corbett,
who previously wrote and directed Vox Lux.
Vox Lux, which had
it has its defenders.
Natalie
I
Portman.
Didn't see it.
It was about a school shooting.
Oh, I thought it was about a pop star.
It's about a pop star, but there's also a school shooting.
Oh, see, I haven't seen
it. But Brady Corbett was an actor. He had small roles in Funny Games and Force Majeure, and that cult movie that Marcy May Marlene.
Mm-hmm. Force Majeure was actually really, really good.
It was. But this story is basically, it's a Holocaust story, or Holocaust survivor story.
Right. It starts in 1947.
Starring Adrian Brody, who plays a Hungarian Jew who comes to America. And it is about his life as an immigrant.
Mm-hmm.
And how he's treated, how he lives, his post-traumatic stress from having been a Holocaust survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And he's an architect.
Yes.
And he gets a job.
He's a famous architect.
This is based on a true story. Whose work is brilliant.
Is it based on a true story?
Is it based on a true story? I thought it was based on a true story. It's based on a book, I know that.
No, it's an original screenplay.
It's an original screenplay, okay. But
yeah, I don't think this person was real.
He gets a job
with
decorating decorating this house.
Oh, well, first he gets a job with his friend, and he's designing furniture.
Yeah.
And
you get to see the shit that he has to live in.
Yeah, literally.
Because he's a heroin addict, and
he becomes one over time. He doesn't start out there, does he? Oh no, he does start out there.
Yeah, he does start there.
Because he's there when they're calling him to go visit Guy Pearce. He's like back in the back bathroom, and he's like, "Well, it's for my injury."
Yeah. He is married, and he has a niece, and they're still back in Hungary, but because of governmental restrictions and because of her health, they cannot come to America yet.
Right.
He befriends Guy Pearce, who is a very wealthy man, and asks him to do a job for him.
Right. Well, first what happens? First what happens is this guy's kids go to his friend and say, "Hey, we want to make this." Remake this office with just piles of stacks of books everywhere into a library.
Build a library.
And he designs the room because he's actually designed like city libraries in Hungary.
Yeah.
And so he develops this really cool way of shielding the books from natural light, but at the same time having just this really like one chair in the middle where he can sit and read with a light on, and it has beautiful light coming in. And Guy Pearce comes back, like his kids were doing this as a surprise. Guy Pearce comes back, and he is
pissed,
off the wall, angry.
Yeah.
And throws them out, is refusing to pay, basically costs Laszlo the job there with his friend.
Adrian Brody character.
The Adrian Brody character.
Laszlo Toth.
And so the Guy Pearce character, Harrison Lee Van Buren Sr.
So that sounds like a building.
Yeah, right. My wager is he is of the presidential Van Buren line somewhere in that family, and he comes back and finds Toth, and he's like, "Hey, I looked you up, and you're famous, so now I'm not mad about my library." Mm-hmm. Which is basically what I got from it. He's like, "Oh, you're famous, so now I'm not mad anymore."
You do not know for a long time that Guy Pearce is basically smoke and mirrors. This guy is wealthy, white, and a hell of a manipulator.
Yeah, he's a con man, really. He has great vision and is willing to indulge Toth quite beyond where probably anybody else should have.
Apparently Laszlo Toth is a real person.
Oh, he is. Oh, wonderful. But this is an original screenplay, so
yeah.
However, was it Corbett and his wife, Mona Fastvold, wrote the screenplay.
I want to tell you, though, as engrossing as this film is...
And it is. Again,
3 hours and 35 minutes. It is engrossing. I want to tell you that, and this is not going to make me very popular to the people who have seen it, I saw it, I enjoyed it, I was engrossed in it, but I wasn't as moved by it as I probably should have been.
Yeah.
I really got involved mostly in the day-to-day life of this man, because seeing how he lives, seeing how he supports himself, seeing the struggles that he has as someone who has come basically out of the fires of hell and into, quote-unquote, the American dream.
Yeah.
And realizing that that's exactly what it is. It's a dream.
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. But it's not quite the nightmare he left.
As Tom Petty said, American dream, political scheme.
Exactly. And Adrian Brody is phenomenal. He's great in this movie.
This is his best performance since The Pianist.
But the emotional pinpoints that I should be having, I didn't really ever get there. I was involved.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
But there's a scene where the key scene that should bring tears to my eyes is when his wife and his niece arrive in America. Mm-hmm. And his wife is played by Felicity Jones.
Yes.
Nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And you see a little bit of their lives there, because their sex life is so sad. Because you see, and it's the best scene in the movie, when they are in bed together. And it's not sex. It's just this very sad, they're trying to have a human connection where they haven't had a human connection since before all of this stuff started.
Now,
but when they get off the train, this should be the moment when I got tears in my eyes, and I wasn't.
Part of the reason for that, we'll say overly cautious sex scene, is she developed osteoporosis during the war.
And she has to be in a wheelchair.
And she can't walk. She's not at full strength, and so he basically they're trying to be intimate without breaking her in half.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, the horrors that they've both seen and his known to her regular infidelities kind of put a wedge between them in a way.
I like the fact that they don't make him a saint, but they don't make him a complete bastard either.
Right, right. He by the end of it, there's little sympathy left for him.
Mm.
There's little sympathy left for anybody by the end of it.
This movie does not. It doesn't hold your hand, but at the same time, I'm also looking for an emotional beat that isn't really there.
Yeah.
It's mounted a lot of times like a documentary, but even in a documentary, I still get the emotional highs. I cared very much about these people. I just was left kind of with a handful of air at the end.
Yeah.
Because it has kind of a Mr. Holland's Opus kind of ending, where it's the connection of all the things that he's been doing, and all of the architecture that he's done, and he's influenced this, and that's fine. But at the end of it, I was just okay.
Yeah. And thank you for saying.
I wasn't being dismissive. I'm just saying
yeah.
it didn't
and
grab me.
it's an excellent film. But yeah, I had trouble. I was engrossed in the story, but I was not emotionally involved with the characters.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of where it lost me. I did genuinely enjoy it. I bought it when it hit so that I could actually see a better copy of it, because I had a really crappy copy, which I blame largely for my not connecting with it. So I'm trying through a better copy to.
It's a good film.
And it's the first film in somewhere in the neighborhood of about 70 years to use VistaVision.
Yeah.
The old what was that, MGM?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The old MGM format, 1.66 to 1 aspect ratio. Hitchcock shot a lot in VistaVision.
I'm sure that this movie will have, because I have a feeling this is going to be one of those movies that after Sunday night, after March 2nd, this movie's basically going to disappear.
Yeah. Even if it wins.
I don't think this is going to stand up.
Yeah. Even if it wins, it's going to be one of the forgotten ones. Like, I love Spotlight, but routinely forget that it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'll try to remember, like, the 20 teens Best Picture winners, and I'll get to that, and I'm like, and I can't. And I look it up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, Spotlight. That was a great movie.
I used to be able to just, on a snap, name all the Best Picture winners just very quickly. I can't do that anymore, because there are some that I just forget about.
Yeah, from about
2010, I start forgetting.
Yeah, and even the early 2000s can get a little dicey for me. Get a little have some holes in them, but
I want it understood, though. I did not hate it. I'm not dismissing it at all. It's a good movie. It's just it didn't leave me with the emotional strength that it didn't grab me with the emotional strength that I was hoping for.
Right.
I was hoping to feel more for this.
Yeah, it is. It's a technically well crafted film.
Yes.
It is a powerfully acted film. It's granted Guy Pearce with his first Oscar nomination.
That's a surprise. That's a surprise.
His first ever nomination, which is kind of mind-boggling if you really think about it. This is what Felicity Jones' second after Theory of Everything.
But I like it very much, and I like the fact that he lets scenes go on a little longer than they should. which at 3 hours and 35 minutes.
Well, I appreciate that he didn't try to sacrifice his vision for a marketable runtime.
Right, right.
Conversely, you could probably lose an hour and it would still be the same movie.
It would still be the same movie. Yeah.
It could be 2.5 hours, still be really long, and still kind of carry the same. But it might actually be more impactful because it could be like tighter, more tightly edited.
Yeah.
But these are actually small quibbles for this movie. I think it's
We're downing it, but we liked it.
right, but like it's I think that I think it'll be one of the ones that is referenced a lot with a lot of people going, "Oh yeah, I didn't see that."
And you'll see in about 2 or 3 years, you'll start to see a couple of videos pop up on YouTube where they do an analysis of it.
Right, and I wouldn't be surprised if it shows up on some critics' best of the decade lists. Come
Because it has to be.
come 2030. Yeah, but
I don't think this is going to be for
the general film audience. That's not what this is. That's not who this is for. This isn't for the people who just saw the Marvel movie last week and are going to see Wicked next week and catching the Brutalist in between. Like that's not.
This ain't for Cletus and Jolene.
Right.
But our next movie we're going to politely skip over because I haven't seen it yet. So what we're going to do with this is later in the week we'll do a short episode on that. It's streaming now today that we're recording this
on VOD.
So that's going to be a complete unknown, which I haven't seen yet.
James Mangold's first Oscar nomination. As best director.
And we're going to move on. We're going to move on to my favorite movie nominated for Best Picture this year, and that's Conclave.
This is a hell of a picture. I mean,
I
say that without irony that it's about a Catholic conclave to try
and it comes of a very, very weird time. Now, this is directed by Edward Berger, whose previous film was the 2022 version of All Quiet on the Western Front.
Ah, yes.
And
that was okay.
It was a little mismanaged. I like this a lot better because
this was
what this
much better. And I think I don't know why he wasn't nominated instead of like Jacques Audiard.
No.
Netflix
this is
just
about
a hell of a campaigner, I guess.
And this is also a little bittersweet because we may not. I don't know the future. Forgive me for listening to this 5-10 years from now. We do not know what's going to happen with the Pope, the current Pope.
Yeah, he's pretty sick right now.
He's very sick right now. He has pneumonia and there's kidney problems, and so we have no idea.
And it coincidentally, quote unquote, came about right after he sternly upbraided the American cardinalcy in the U.S. for bending to Trump because he was like, yeah, this guy doesn't have any Christian ideals whatsoever, and
right.
you guys are making fools of yourself. You really you're not being good Catholics by supporting this guy, and then he went into the hospital. It's like, wait a minute, are they JP1 in this? Soon as JP1 started to get a little revolutionary, they killed his ass.
Right. This is about, and I say bittersweet because in the movie, the movie begins with the death of the Pope. And the movie is about the process of electing a new pope.
And it's a fascinating process that literally no outsider has ever seen.
Right, right. And basically, Ralph Fiennes plays the dean of the College of the Circle.
The Cardinals.
The Cardinals. The College of Cardinals. And he's overseeing the process, the transition of the Pope,
the election,
what he left behind, and the election of the new Pope. And it's fascinating. It's this completely it's this sort of secret inner world. You see the inner workings of this, and how they elect a pope, and how they twist arms for a candidate.
And it is a taut thriller.
Yeah,
it is,
because there are all these different players and all of these different men, no women, all these different men who are all,
except Isabella Rossellini, also snagging her first
nomination,
Oscar nomination.
And things start to open up about the Pope's final hours.
This was a manipulative guy.
Yeah.
Like, he was pulling strings to get things done weeks after he was dead. He, like, Palpatined this.
Right.
He'd, like, Operation Cinder with the droids with his holographic face on it, like he was still alive. Like,
you've got the sweet, gentle, liberal-minded cardinal played by Stanley Tucci. You've got the hard line, hard right cardinal who is, his nomination, his election would be historic because he would be the first black cardinal, or be the first black pope. And Stanley Tucci says his ideas are insane because they're so far right.
They're very, 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 very regressive.
Right.
Ideas.
He believes that gay people should be locked up and things like that. And then there's John Lithgow, and who's just very, very unpopular.
Yeah.
Just he's kind of stiff.
Basically, he was like the Pope's secretary.
Yeah.
Or something like like he was like the number 2 guy, and he's liked and supported, but
nobody really wants him to be Pope.
Yeah. Yet he still gets a decent amount of votes.
And then of course Ralph Fiennes plays the guy who's overseeing all of this, and he gets a couple of votes, and he's the one who has to say, "I don't want to be Pope."
The poor tortured man. I mean, this guy goes through the ringer. I felt so bad for him, and
because he gets all the insider information,
right? And he's trying to run this thing and not be swayed by outside information that he is obtaining,
right?
And suddenly his name gets called with having somebody voted for him. He's like, nope, remove my name, and people are like, nope, we'll still vote for you. His vote count goes up and up and up.
Yeah.
He's like, gets closer and closer. He's like, no, okay. I'm just supposed to run this.
Okay, spoiler alert, I'm going to give away the ending, because the ending is so fascinating, because the person who ends up getting elected is he's from, where is he from? He's
from
Hispanic.
South America.
He's from South America.
Colombia, maybe. And he's the one who gets selected. Right. So
and then it comes out
he's a very new cardinal that was promoted by the Pope in secret. His name was not on the cardinal list because he was stationed in Iraq and Afghanistan and in very, very, very horrifying, dangerous parts that if they knew that he was there, they'd kill him.
But that's not the part that's interesting.
Nope.
Spoiler alert. It turns out that he has a condition in which he was born. He was born of both sexes?
He would he's I genuinely don't know the preferred nomenclature for.
I don't either.
In olden times, they would be known as a hermaphrodite. That's not.
They don't use that term anymore.
No, I don't know what the proper nomenclature is, but yes, they were born with outward appearing male sex organs and also a uterus that he didn't know about. They didn't know about until they were in their 30s and they went in for an operation. They're like, hey, by the way.
Well, not to sound like, well, forgive me for this, but this is an actor who has a very feminine look about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's very quiet. He's sort of in the background for most of the. I don't know this actor, but he's in the background for most of the.
He reminded me of a demure Oscar Ramirez.
Yeah. I never say this. I never ever say this, but I kind of want a sequel to this because I want to see what happens when this thing blows up. Because that is where the movie ends.
Right, and we like Ray Fiennes finds this out because his aide gets this information that they were scheduled for a hysterectomy.
Mm-hmm.
But they decided to not have the procedure because they decided that they were as God made them, and to change that would be against God. So they stayed as they were born.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pope knew that because the Pope is the one that scheduled the hysterectomy and arranged for the flight and everything. But the dead Pope was working working this whole thing before he died to maneuver this person into Benitez.
Yeah, Benitez.
Into this position and basically force the vote in his favor.
Yeah.
How he knew that this whole thing was going to break down with the hard right and the hard left and the center kind of flibbity-flobbiting, and how everything would end up getting turned to Benitez. But he orchestrated everything in such a way. He had somebody come to the conclave, a nun that Nakatanda had a slip up with many years previous.
Yeah.
And they had a public altercation.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of came out. That torpedoed his candidacy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly what torpedoed John Lithgow's, other than the fact that he was just John Lithgow. Like, I don't. I'm sorry. It was a Demye. That was the cardinal. That was
the African.
Yeah.
Cardinal. And I can say it's fascinating because there's this beautiful insider look at how this process takes place, tacked on to one of the greatest twist endings I've seen in I don't know how many years.
This could not have, the ending could not have smacked you in the face harder than if it was like an Agatha Christie or a Raymond Chandler novel, because they would just pick things that they were like, all right, well, we hadn't talked about this in the entire book, but this is how everything hinged, and this is why this person did it. It's like, how is anybody supposed to guess that? It's like the Truman Capote character in Murder by Death, how he's railing after these endings that don't make any sense. How could you guess this? That's how I felt.
Fascinating.
But it's absolutely amazing, and everybody plays their part to the hilt. And Isabella Rossellini is just a very persistent, inquisitive woman who...
She's a nun.
She just has questions. She just wants some answers.
And I want a sequel. I want to see this. I want to see the fallout from this because his confessional, Benitez's confessional, is how the movie ends.
Yeah. Well, but you see him actually accepting the mantle. Cardinal Lawrence.
But can you imagine what's going to happen in the world in the world in general, and within the Vatican, when this information goes public?
It's gonna melt the place. These characters could actually probably stand up to another film.
Yeah,
too.
I would love that. I don't usually ask for sequels, but
yeah, especially to a movie about picking the new pope.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would love to see this one Best Picture.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be upset if it did. This was a great surprise. It just I'm actually excited. I want to see it again. I want to watch it again.
Speaking of sequels, our next movie is a sequel.
Sort of.
Well, it is a sequel.
Technically, it's Dune Part Two. It's actually kind of like the back half of the first book. Because the Frank Herbert novel is so huge.
Yeah.
And there is a part 3 coming. There is a part 3 coming.
I realize now, basically unadaptable, because what you have is the best filmmaker they could find. Mm-hmm. The best visionary filmmaker they could find, and the movie is still convoluted. Because, and I want to say, I am with most of the population right now. I am sick of remakes and sequels. Mm-hmm. But this is a real movie.
Look, Denis Villeneuve can do anything.
And we praised him on this show before.
Yes, Arrival was my favorite film of 2016.
Blade Runner was my favorite film.
2040, 2040,
2049.
That was a sequel that was as good, if not potentially better than the original.
Well, I didn't like the originals.
The original grew on me. We should talk about Blade Runner sometime again. I think we talked about it, but I think we should talk about it again.
And I want to say about this one, if you have not seen the first one, you absolutely need to see the first one. Because this movie opens when they're burying the body of a guy who died at the very end of the first one.
Right. Like, this is very much, like, I think they filmed this... They didn't actually film this continuously. They didn't... They came back to do this. They didn't know that they were going to get the sequel. They didn't know. But as soon as Part 2 came out and it was so big, Part 3 was immediately announced, and it's going to be an adaptation of the second Dune book. And then Villeneuve said, I'm done. I'm not making any more, because they get really weird after that.
And this is really complicated. As much as I love this movie, as much as I love this and the first one, and I've read the book, it's so complicated. And I mean, I don't mean that in a deadly way. All the relationships and the infighting and all of the people. There's so many characters. There's a huge cast of characters.
It's massive, and there is there's galactic politics to understand.
There's all the religious stuff.
And religious stuff that is in this universe somewhere between what, 50,000 or to 100,000 years old. Like it beats the Jedi by like 75,000 years. Like it is an old religion that is actually being investigated. The beginnings of it is being shown in that Dune Prophecy series on Max. That I saw the first episode of and was good, but not really good enough for me to watch the second episode.
This is in two parts, though, because you've got the two factions. You've got the Fremen, who are the religious side, and I dare you to watch this and not think of Life of Brian, who are, because they think Paul is the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy!
He's not the Messiah! He's a very naughty boy!
When I did my video review, I had to include that. And the other side are the more advanced, you might say, House Harkonnen.
They're
basically Sith.
They are so evil that their son is black. Like, it's just and
S-U-N.
Yes, they are. I mean, Irish people have more of a tan. Like, these guys are pale. And I didn't think Austin Butler could ever not look like Elvis, but he actually managed to not look like Elvis when he was purely white and bald and basically naked.
It's a good performance.
Oh, everybody's fantastic in it. Nobody got nominated for either acting.
We should say also, this movie came out, I had to remind myself, because this movie came out around the time of last year's Oscars.
Yeah.
I mean, I think almost the same weekend.
Yeah.
Or close to it. But because this is a year old, I had to remind myself.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, watching this, I so appreciate the work.
Yeah.
That not only went into the visual look of it, that not only went into the cinematography, the costumes, the makeup, all of that. I so appreciate the details, the attention to religious ceremony and religious sacrament, and all of this little stuff that goes on.
He doesn't belittle or demean one thing over another,
and he doesn't make the character standard.
Right? No. He did not. He didn't adapt in the traditional way, which is to strip it down to its bare bones and then build it back up as a film. He is deftly building a world without making basically 3 movies of just straight up exposition.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what David Lynch's version was. I don't blame that on David Lynch. Yes, just recently passed. He is a filmmaker that I have had continuous problems with. He and I have had an embittered and battered relationship, but I do admire his work, even if I don't always enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I like the original Dune to a point.
It was a mess.
Yeah, it was. But that wasn't his fault. Just as a quick note on Dune, though, if you want to see what it could have been in the 70s, watch the documentary
Jodorowsky's Dune.
Jodorowsky's Dune. That, if he had been able to make that picture, I think the world would have just been able to end peacefully.
Yeah.
Because that thing would have been just based on the drawings and everything in the documentary, just would have been mind-boggling. I wish he would have gotten a chance to do it. Anyway, convoluted. Let's move forward because
Emilia Pérez.
Wow.
Good fucking God! What is this?
God. You know what this is? This is the only movie that shouldn't be here. That's what this is. I don't understand how this got nominated for 13,
For anything.
13 Oscars.
13!
Best Picture, Best Director, Best Lead Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Screenplay, Cinematography, Editing,
International Picture.
International Picture, Song, just...
two songs.
Yeah. None of...
Now, I want to give you a perspective, though. It's nominated for 13 Oscars. There are 24 categories.
Yeah.
So, over half of them.
I just... Look, I like Jacques Audiard. A Prophet in 2009 was a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
The Sisters Brothers was not, and neither was Rust and Bone. But A Prophet was really... Deepan is actually really quite good, too.
Can I say of this... Can I tell you what happened with me? If this is on Netflix. And thank God I didn't have to pay for this. But
I am...
It starts...
Infinitely exponentially elated that I didn't actually have to pay for this movie.
Well, the movie starts kind of interesting because it starts with these little lights.
Yeah.
And this music, and it keeps getting louder and louder, and you're not sure what it is. But it opens with a striking image because you find out the lights are on the costumes of this mariachi band.
Yeah.
And it starts off with this they're singing very it's not bouncy and fun. It's kind of serious. And then it moves into the life of this lawyer played by Zoe Saldana. And she...
Wonderfully played, I might add.
She... Forgive me on the details, because a lot of this movie's left my brain.
Look, I only just watched this the other day, so I'll be able to fill in some gaps, but,
She gets a call to talk to this sort of Pablo Escobar-esque drug kingpin.
Right. And
she, very much like Al Pacino in The Insider, she's kind of taken, with a hood on her face. And
right.
To meet with this man who's a scary-looking dude. And it is not what you expect. This movie is never what you expect.
No. So, the drug kingpin is a closeted trans woman who hires the Zoe Saldana character to find a discreet doctor that won't...
He's a wanted man, by the way.
Yes, he's a highly, very wanted criminal. And
this is not what I expected him to say. I thought that he was going to ask her to sort of document his story or something like that, or do something, or defend him.
Yeah.
I did not expect, and I thought, and when he said that, I thought, okay, right. that's different.
And he had been on hormone treatment for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this wasn't I want to do this operation so I can hide from the police.
Which you think it is?
There's that question, but I personally, the way when before the transition, and he's talking about the person inside him, that there's no question that this is genuinely their identity.
Right.
Right. And well played by Carla Sofia Gascon, who is the first trans woman to be nominated in the lead actress category.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately,
Carlos.
Yes.
Carla Maria
Gascon.
Sophia. Carlos Sophia.
Sophia, sorry.
Unfortunately, there have been problems that
What
have
is the controversy
arisen.
here?
Okay, so there are a few controversies going on with Emilia Pérez. First, there's an AI controversy, but I'm not totally sure what they used it for. I know that the director of the Brutalist said that they used AI to correct the audible Hungarian, where they maybe made a mistake. It made it sound more like they were native speakers of Hungarian. It didn't alter their performance, it just made the pronunciations better. But there's an AI controversy with this. The second controversy hit when people started to go, why is a French director writing and directing a movie about a Mexican drug cartel leader casting a Spaniard to play them, casting then a Colombian to play another Mexican? No one in the movie is Mexican.
Right.
No Mexicans were used in the production. Everybody
and this is nominated for international feature.
Right. For France.
For France.
But it's in Spanish.
Right.
Because, and look, I'm not saying you got to stay in your lane. I'm not saying that a French guy can't direct a movie about Mexicans, but cast a Mexican. Selena Gomez isn't even of Mexican descent.
Right.
And she's
American.
She gives a damn good performance.
I was surprised. I didn't expect her. But then again, I could draw you up a 3-page list of stuff I didn't expect from this.
So
because very early in the movie, I'm sitting there and I'm watching and I'm like, okay, this comes off like a very hard drama.
And then there's songs.
And then they start singing. It's a musical.
Peppy songs that completely undermine the drama. Now, the third, and I think the most damning scandal, and it is what prompted Netflix to say we are withdrawing our support from the Best Actress campaign for Gascon, because some old tweets of hers surfaced. Now, she is Spanish.
Yeah.
She's not young, but she's not old.
Please, she's a year younger than I am.
Right.
I'm 53.
But she grew up in a post-Franco society that was not really not fascist anymore.
Yeah.
So she had tweeted something racist against black people that I can't recall exactly what she said. But then she started off with kind of the Hitler had some good ideas too.
Yeah.
And immediately her campaign was torpedoed. There was no chance of her winning. She has since, and I cannot hold any of this against her anymore, because she came out and she said, yes, I said those things. They were misguided. They were misinformed.
Yeah.
I do not feel that way now after learning, having said that, over time, how wrong I was to say these things.
Right.
And I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. That should have been the end of it.
Yeah, but it didn't do shit, because she's a trans woman from Spain, so nobody's going to give her the benefit of the doubt. Now,
but in terms of the movie, this is a movie that goes completely haywire. It goes in about 84 different directions. It has different styles. It has musical numbers. It's a hodgepodge of stuff. And that by the end, I'm like, I don't know what I just saw.
Yeah, it never focuses on telling a single story.
Yeah.
It is trying to tell...
It's unexpected.
Right, it's trying to tell about 60 different stories, and it never resolves any of them.
Right.
To any kind of satisfaction, anyway. But again, the standout is Zoe Saldana, which, as I was telling you before, I've never understood why she hasn't had up until this point a very successful dramatic career, because when she started, she was in indies and she was doing some really, really, really great work, and then they started putting her in action movies, and then she became an arm candy actress, much in the way that they said that
she became
Demi
a
Moore
franchise
was.
actress.
Right. So they
Marvel
basically
and Star Trek and Avatar.
So they're kind of writing her off as an actress. But she comes through with this, despite the off-putting and out-of-place musical numbers.
Now, I don't know...
That make a too-long movie even longer.
Oh, my God. Well, now, I don't know... because I was surprised she speaks Spanish. I didn't know that.
Oh, she's Colombian.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And...
I don't know if she grew up in Colombia or if she was born there and immigrated, but I'm fairly certain she's naturalized, or one of her parents is American, and so she like a split kind of growing up between the two different kind of cultures.
But she's one of the most intelligent actresses we have.
Absolutely.
But I have one little problem. Of course, I got a million problems with this movie, but one in particular is, why is she nominated for Best Supporting Actress?
She should be lead.
She should be lead.
Yes. Okay. She was born in Passaic, New Jersey. Raised in Queens. Her father was Dominican and her mother was Puerto Rican.
Okay.
You know why I thought she was Colombian?
Why is that?
I remembered she was in Colombiana, and for whatever reason that just stuck in my head. I am so ashamed of myself for that.
Well, and it's funny because I'm watching the movie.
Deeply for that mistake.
I'm watching the movie and I'm focused on Zoe Saldana, and I'm like, okay, she does not seem. She seems in the movie probably more than anybody else. That's not to say that Carla Gaston gives a bad performance.
It's kind of her story, though.
But it's her story, and I'm like, why is she supporting?
It's Rita's story. It's as much Rita's story as it was Emma Stone's story in The Help, when they were trying to pass it off as Viola Davis's story, but it was really, they had to put it through the white lens.
But we have to talk about these musical numbers, because first of all,
the hell were they?
They come out of nowhere. They're not very long, but they're really, really distracting.
Yeah.
And the problem is, the songs don't fit the tone of the movie.
Not even remotely. Like, they don't.
And once they're over,
like,
you forget about them.
Yeah, they're zippy and upbeat, and they're like big production numbers and everything. It's like you're watching West Side Story, but it's about a trans.
It's like The Brutalist.
Quartet, yeah. It like this. If The Brutalist had musical numbers, it would be Emilia Pérez.
Right. And there's a scene where after Carla Gaston has the surgery, after she transitions into a woman, there's a scene where, because there's a development where she goes and she starts an organization that is helping to look for people in South America who have disappeared.
Right, people who have been kidnapped. The thing.
But while she's giving that speech, Zoe Saldana is walking around in the audience, and this musical number starts.
Yeah.
and it's this jiggling music, this jiggling musical number, and then it stops, and the movie just goes right back to where it was.
Right.
It's this flash mob style thing.
Yeah,
and it doesn't work.
No, and it's trying desperately to be a Broadway play, a Broadway musical, but it is. I mean, and that's the only place that musical numbers can fit into heavy drama. Les Mis, anybody? Well, not the movie, but the Broadway play. I actually got to see that on Broadway once. But for movies,
you need some grounding.
Yeah, hardcore heavy drama and zippy peppy musical numbers don't work together.
Yeah.
Like, at least when you have other dramas that have heavy components to it that are musicals, like, I don't know, The Sound of Music, when they're being actively hunted by Nazis.
Yeah.
They don't break into Do Re Mi or the Lonely Goat Herd in the middle of that situation, which is exactly what they do here.
It's distracting.
It is. It completely undermines all of the drama. If the musical numbers weren't there, this might have been a much better movie. Might have been.
I thought this was going to be, as it got started, until the musical numbers cut in, I thought this was going to be much like our next film, which is called I'm Still Here.
Oh, God, this was so good.
Which, this is the movie Emilia Pérez should have been.
This was written and directed by Walter Sales, who should have been nominated for Best Director instead of Jacques Audiard. Yeah. Although, a very interesting trivia with this movie. Okay, the lead actress, Fernanda Torres, is nominated for Best Actress in a Leading Role.
Right.
7 years ago,
Central Station,
Walter Sales had another movie called Central Station that was up for, at the time, Best Foreign Language Film. The lead actress in that, Fernanda Montenegro, was nominated for Best Actress in a Leading Role. Fernanda Montenegro is Fernanda Torres' mother.
Yes.
So, mother and daughter were both directed to Oscar nominations by the same writer-director.
Right.
Who is a magnificent writer-director. Who did...
He made the Motorcycle Diaries.
The Motorcycle Diaries, Central Station. I mean...
He tried to break into American film with this movie called Dark Water.
That didn't work out.
Yeah, that didn't work. Jennifer Connelly. That movie, yeah. That didn't work. No. And he was the producer on one of my favorite movies, City of God.
Yes. That's such a great movie.
Yeah.
So
this takes place and it takes place in Brazil during the military dictatorship that existed between the mid-60s and the mid-80s. And it is about a family. And
family of a noted oppositional congressperson.
Right.
Who, once they dissolved Congress, they could just go and arrest.
Do whatever they wanted.
Right.
And
basically.
They come to get him, and they're going to, what they tell her is they're going to take him, and they're going to ask him a few questions. He'll be home before you know it. And we know, and she knows better.
10 years later.
10 years later.
They find out that he's dead.
Yeah.
This is a tragic story. beautifully told. It's not too long, even at 2 hours and 17 minutes long. It's not too long.
Yeah.
I genuinely wish Walter Sales was nominated for Best Director instead of Jacques Audiard, because this picture, like many of his others, is this, you get to see this microcosm.
They're living in a bubble, essentially.
Right. You get to see how a microcosm exists within a macrocosm.
Yeah.
And how it reacts to what is happening outside. But you get this little family bubble.
When you see their living room, when you see their living room and their kitchen, you realize that they are living, that while the Brazil is under a cruel dictatorship, they're living within this little family unit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're maintaining, it's not all broken windows and gunshots. They're actually living a life.
Oh, yes.
They're raising their children. And then one of them one day disappears. And that becomes her focus. She wants to know what happened to him. When she goes to ask questions, she spends several days at the police station in a cell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically. Treated very cruelly.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are there and they're being beaten.
Mm-hmm.
She is deprived of food and water.
Mm-hmm.
And when she goes home, and this was fascinating to me, when she goes home, there's this extended sequence where she takes a shower.
Mm-hmm.
And she's trying to wash all of it off.
Yeah.
Hopefully, obviously the dirt and grime that has built up because she hasn't had a shower in the last however long she was there.
Week.
But hopefully washing away the mental scars of what is going on.
Right.
Because it is a cold water treatment to the world in which she lives outside. And a very, very cold water treatment to what her children are going to have to face under this regime.
Right.
And
it should be noted that this based on a book. This is a true story, written by the son of the congressman, Marcelo Rubens Paiva.
Yeah.
The little boy that's in this, that's played by Antonio Saboya.
Yeah.
I think at the end, the guy in the wheelchair wrote numerous books on what happened to his father. He's a very well revered Brazilian writer. Who is still alive. He was in some kind of an accident that left him wheelchair bound. That's never really explained. I don't know anything about that, but it was fascinating to me while I was watching it because I had paused the movie.
You thought you knew where this movie was going.
Right. Well, I paused the movie briefly and I looked it up because I didn't know if it was a real story or not. And I have ADHD and undiagnosed autism, so I get distracted. So
I do too, which is why it took me 12 days to get through Emilia Pérez.
Oh God, I had to do that in one day because I knew I wasn't going to come back to it. Guess who still hasn't watched beyond maybe 45 minutes of what was that Bradley Cooper thing that he had the false nose that was way too ethnic looking that bordered on racist? Bernstein. Yeah, Maestro. I think I got about 45 minutes to an hour into that. I had to stop it. I never went back.
Yeah, I kept looking at it going, Bradley, you want an Oscar. So you want an Oscar very badly.
So bad. so bad.
So bad.
And they want to give him one so bad that they nominate him for no reason.
Yeah.
It's like he's the Diane Warren of every other category of the Oscars.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
she should never have been nominated for one Oscar, let alone the 48 that she's been. Anyway.
This movie, you know where it's going. It's one of those tricky things.
You do, but you don't.
You do, but you don't. And it's not the destination, it's the journey, because as soon as they get that man out the door, you know he's not coming back.
Oh yeah. This isn't the dad getting taken for questioning by Mussolini's people in Amarcord. That the worst he gets is castor oil and horrible diarrhea and massive embarrassment.
No, he never comes back.
No, they torture and kill him in prison. Yeah. I mean, and you are
and you are witness to people who are being beaten.
And the beauty of this, I have to say, is that we never go with him.
Yeah.
We always stay with Eunice.
It's a mystery. You are as befuddled as she is.
We are as in the dark as she is. It's like Zhang Yimou's Judo, where you only know as much as it's Maggie Chen. You only know as much as the woman does, as she is trying to get through the bureaucracy of Chinese communism to get an answer. It's a beautiful story. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's early '90s Zhang Yimou. Excellent film. But this
is a heartbreaking film.
It is, and it's worth every second you spend with it. This is probably like my second or third favorite movie of the year, or at least my second or third pick on the Oscar Best Picture list, because there are nuances and emotions being played by Torres.
It's a beautiful performance.
It is, because so much of it is done behind a blank face.
Yeah.
Because she's trying to hold all this in, and there's one moment near the end where she is crying. She's by herself crying. Her daughter comes in and she wipes her eyes. Were you crying? No. She never, ever, ever is seen crying by any of her children. Mm-hmm. She is never seen as being negatively impacted by this, by her children. She is the pillar of strength that no one should ever have to be.
Right. And that scene where she goes to the church is just great.
Yeah.
She goes to that chapel. Yeah.
This is absolutely deserves to be nominated for Best Picture, and again, should be nominated for Best Director.
Well, I'm going to say that her performance and that movie is the most positive thing I'm going to say for the rest of this show, because the next three films I don't generally have a lot of good things to say about. Now, I know you like the next one more than I do.
Oh, I'm going to fight you about this one.
We're talking about the Nickel Boys.
I'm going to fight about this one.
This is from a very good director. His name is Ramel Ross.
Ramel Ross.
And he made an astoundingly good documentary a couple of years ago called Hill County This Morning, This Evening, which is a chronicle. It's an observatory chronicle of a small town in Arkansas, or in Alabama, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those movies where it's just looking at stuff, and it's just meeting people. And there's no interviews. It's just life happening in this small black community. And I'm going to say that Nickel Boys, on a technical level, I think is brilliant.
Yeah.
On an emotional level, I'm not there.
I was. First of all,
tell the story of this one.
All right. So, first of all, the thing that you have to know is that the whole film is shot from a first-person perspective. Which, when it started, I was like, "Is the whole movie like this?" So, of course,
it feels like a gimmick at first.
ADHD autism. Had to pause the movie. I found out that the whole thing is done in this fashion, kind of like Alan Ladd did The Lady in the Lake.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that Nickel Boys is much more successful than Alan Ladd.
Or not quite as much Hardcore Henry,
Let's not talk about Hardcore Henry, please. Or the last 10 minutes of Doom. Oh, we shouldn't talk about any of the minutes of Doom. Have you ever seen that one? With the
I
Rock?
never saw Doom.
Oh, God.
I had better
awful.
things to do.
Oh, man. I saw it because I knew how bad it was going to be. But this, for me, I really enjoyed how it took these two characters and it oscillates between the first person perspective between the two, actually yielding in some ways. We get to see the same scene from both their viewpoints,
right?
And the first person becomes extremely important because it flashes forward to an older version of the one character, Elwood.
Mm-hmm. It's very innovative.
It is.
I will not question that.
And I think Elwood's a writer.
Ends up in a work camp.
Basically, yeah, it's like a juvenile facility. It's
based on a misunderstanding.
Right. It's called Nickel Academy. He gets sent there, and he meets Turner.
But he gets sent there because he hitches a ride with a man
who stole a car.
And this young man had nothing to do with it.
He was guilty of riding while black.
Yeah.
Basically. In the what? 50s, 60s?
1960s.
Yeah. So when he gets there, he meets up with Turner. They kind of become fast friends, and they're inseparable.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've seen these two actors before. I don't know where, but I've seen them.
It goes back and forth. It tells their story. They get closer and closer, and another incident happens, and Elwood gets severely beaten and winds up in the infirmary.
Mm-hmm.
His aunt, who is his grandmother, who's basically his mother, played by Ingenue Ellis Taylor, who was gypped out of an Oscar nomination for this film, I think.
Wasn't she nominated for...
She was nominated for...
is it King Richard?
Moonlight,
okay.
She was Mahershala Ali's girlfriend.
Okay.
No, she was the mother. She was the kid's mother. That's right. Anyway, and Turner circumstantially runs into Hattie.
Mm-hmm.
He lets her know that they're not letting anybody in to see Elwood. He tells her who he is. She hugs him like he's her own, because Elwood writes back, and she knows how close they are, and she basically adopts him into her heart as one of her children immediately. And it's beautiful. The story progresses, and the two boys are put on a work detail.
Cruel work detail.
Name me a work detail in the 60s that involved black people governed by white people that wasn't brutal.
In the Deep South.
This is what, Mississippi?
Well,
Or Alabama?
the cruelty comes from this. The owner of the place, or the guy who runs the place, tells them, okay, we work on a point system here. You start off as here, and you
Mm-hmm.
work your way up, and when you get to this level, you can leave.
Mm-hmm.
You can just. But nobody ever gets there.
No.
It's a false hope,
Right.
and
It's
they know
that's
it.
that you graduate when you get to this behavioral level, but because it's a work camp for young black men run by racist white men, they're never
Ain't
getting
nobody
out of
getting
there.
out of here.
They're never getting out of there because the 13th Amendment has that nice little slavery clause built right into it. I have to get into that though. Anyway,
I want to say though, I want to tell you because when I watched this, I so appreciated the work that Ramel Ross had put into this because I rarely I don't think I'd ever seen a movie like this, but
no.
it was the pure work and the originality because he could have just made a movie about two kids going to a work camp and it probably would have been fine, but the work that he wants to put you in their shoes. He wants to put you at the table. He wants to give you a perspective on this.
He doesn't just want to put you in their shoes. He wants to put you he puts you behind their eyes. He
In their
puts you
skin.
in their heads.
My issue is this. When I came away from the film, I felt more or less the same way that I did at the end of The Brutalist. I saw a very, very good film that didn't grab hold of me emotionally as it should have. And that may have been the fact that I saw this movie on the exact same day that I saw The Brutalist.
Ooh.
And I
Okay.
may not have been on the level with it.
May not have been quite a smooth transition.
What I saw was
The
the work overriding the emotional impact that I should have had.
the
When it,
end.
mhm.
I don't know how you were not. It's swapping back and forth between these boys' perspectives as they are running for their lives, trying
Yeah,
to escape, and they are being actively shot at. And it bounces back and forth between the one, between Turner and Elwood. And
yeah,
Turner's in the lead, and Elwood's having trouble. He's not a particularly physical kid. Uh,
it's a little heavy set.
and then you hear a gunshot and you see Turner look back. You see Elwood drop, but you're not really sure if what happened.
Yeah,
And then you're just locked into Turner running.
hmm
A fevered pitch. And he comes to Elwood's house and he bangs on the door. Hattie opens the door, pulls him in, and says, Elwood's alive. Because she knew just instinctively with him showing up in that fashion, everything has gone wrong.
I think my problem was that by this point, my focus, and this is the point of all through the film, my focus is entirely on the work. It's entirely on. I'm watching the filmmaking. Now I
Right.
will say this: if we were reviewing this Siskel and Ebert style, I would be saying I'm giving it a thumbs up with a slight reservation because when I got to the end of it, I felt like I had seen a very well crafted film that didn't it
I
didn't have that impact for me.
the first person perspective and the when you find out that basically they just kind of altered these birth records and all of these records to make Turner into Elwood.
Hmm
To I mean, to cover up the fact that Turner escaped, and they would have to say, "Oh no, this Elwood kid's dead." So clearly this can't be him. But look at all these documentation. So they kind of leave him alone. They let him go.
Yeah.
There's one scene right before the escape that takes place in the present, or whatever. I get late 70s, early
Future.
80s, whatever. But he's in his 30s or 40s at that point. And he's at a bar and he runs into a guy that was there at Nickel Academy with him. And he says his name, that he recognizes him, and he says it's Elwood, and he's like, "Do you remember what happened? Because this kid was on the same work detail. He was in the same field, when Elwood got dropped." And the kid's like, "All I remember is some of the people and basically the treatment, the abuse. I don't remember anything else."
Yeah, it has a feeling of almost a stream of consciousness as you're remembering something.
Yeah.
Because when you're remembering something, it doesn't have a through line. You're remembering fractured narrative. You remember it in fractures.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate it because I've never really seen a movie like this.
No, this is
where you see things and then you later on you're like, okay, that's somebody else's perspective.
Yeah.
And like you were talking about, and then when you get to the end, and there's all this revelation. When you get to the end and the revelation comes out about Elwood and the birth records and all of that, that's where I found the technique distracting. That's where I start, because I'm like, okay, I want to be in the story, and I'm looking at the work.
Steve,
and
I was fully as skeptical as I was at the beginning. The technique worked on me to the level that I think Ross wanted it.
Yeah.
And I was in there with them.
Well, I'm going to tell you something.
Ross should have been nominated for Best Director.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you something.
And this should have been nominated for Best Cinematography, which it was not, and I still don't understand that.
Well, I'll tell you something that we are going to disagree, that we are going to absolutely agree on, and that's our next movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this with all the affection in the world. I want to believe, I want to hope, and would love to find out that before David Lynch left this earth, he got a chance to see The Substance. Because I think he would have loved it.
I think he would have loved it. I think David Cronenberg
would have looked at it and said, "Damn, why didn't I make that?"
Yes. How did I not make this? Because I watched it.
Substance.
I watched it going, how is this not a David Cronenberg movie? And by the end, it was more of a David Cronenberg movie than a David Cronenberg movie.
My wife walked through the living room and she was like, "What are you watching?" I said, "The Substance." She's like, "Is that the one about the killer yogurt?" And I was like, "No, that's The Stuff. That's the Larry Cohen movie."
That is a heck of a movie that I have been bandying about for Turkey Month for a few years now.
God, that movie's gross.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
But The Substance is so... I didn't know what it was about. I purposely stayed away from all spoilers.
So,
and even a plot description. But
all I knew was it was a drug that made you appear younger or gave you a different look. I didn't expect the younger version to literally claw out the back Demi Moore.
Basically, what this is Demi Moore plays an actress, and
she's basically Jane Fonda in the 80s. She
basically
is
it's Demi Moore now.
Yeah, it's
basically what happens.
And she's doing these fitness videos. That's why
her career has seen
her.
Better days.
Yeah, I liken her to Jane Fonda because she, 2-time Academy Award winning actress, and by the mid 80s was having to do workout videos just to live. And now, of course, she's in a career resurgence, thankfully, but
she plays a woman who's, I hate to use the term, past her prime, and she's not being hired for anything.
The industry has decided that she is no longer a viable product.
Well, she's not 25 years old
anymore. Which is one of the single most disgusting sentences you could possibly say, but it's exactly what it is.
Because it's an image business.
Yeah.
And she finds out that her show has been canceled. She gets, and I love the fact that they never explain this. She gets information about something called the substance.
Yeah.
And they don't tell her what it is.
It's this very clandestine operation
where you have to go to the worst part of town to a post office box to pick up this package,
and
the package
anonymous, and you have absolutely no concept. Like she doesn't know if she's injecting herself with Ebola or
bleach.
Yeah, I mean, like there's no. It's so clandestine. It's so secretive that they don't even charge money for it.
But the rules for this thing are it's like Gremlins.
Yes.
It's like, they give you a set of specific rules that you have to inject yourself. And what happens is when you inject yourself with this stuff, a younger version of you crawls out of your spinal cord.
And becomes you for 7 days. Well, becomes their own person. For 7 days. It's basically a clone. And
after 7 days, you have to switch back.
Right, because there's a chemical that's produced by the resting body that is needed to keep the living one healthy, but it can only regenerate during that week awake.
Right.
So it has to be awake for it to regenerate and be able to have this stuff that preserves the life on both sides.
She builds a vault in her home just to store the resting body, the one that is dormant for 7 days. But she's told that she has to switch back because and she finds out if she doesn't switch back within 7 days, the older body starts to age rapidly.
Well, there are consequences to disobeying the balance.
Yeah.
And for every day, really, that the Margaret Qualley younger version steals, the older version becomes more and more like something basically she becomes the witch in Hansel and Gretel.
I basically put on Facebook the other day, I said, you may not realize this, but Margaret Qualley's butt gets more screen time than the Hulk did in the new Captain America movie.
Right?
There is not a no nudity clause anywhere near this movie because both of these actresses, Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, are both naked for a lot of the time. The thing is, there are so many rules in this movie that by the end of it, I was sitting there going, I think I'd just rather age gracefully.
Yeah. Well,
I'd rather be doing
the whole thing is
nostalgic.
It's allegorical to plastic surgery and the quest to be ever ever younger and to make the ridiculous expectations that are placed specifically on
women,
beautiful women, or any woman, that it would make this a very attractive prospect. The
problem is that the Margaret Qualley character, the younger version,
starts
stealing
right
time away from the Demi Moore character, and the Demi Moore character starts aging rapidly.
Yeah, and because Margaret Qualley is a young woman, she's in her 20s, she has a life, she's getting very popular, she has a show, she has this big life that she's in, and she wants to keep living it, and who could blame her?
Yeah,
but at the same time,
she has to be gone for 7 days.
By ignoring these rules, what she does is she takes all of this fluid out until it's expended entirely.
And the back 20 minutes of this movie are basically a Rick and Morty episode.
Yeah, basically.
Because it gets so... I was sitting there, and there's a moment at the end of the movie when she has to be at this... She's got to be at this event, and the Demi Moore character has aged into just this hulking, disgusting hunchback.
She looks like if you were watching something that was trying to make a stereotypical ugly witch character,
that would be her.
That would be her. So, I mean, the whole I don't think I actually
I'm gonna tell you,
saw, like, with my eyes, most of the last 20 minutes of the movie, because I knew if I continued to watch it without turning away, I would throw up, because I almost did. My stomach is not strong enough for body horror. I have deep trouble with David Cronenberg films that are like The Fly and Videodrome and stuff like that. But this actually...
I'm going to confess something to you. I did the exact same thing. When her teeth started falling out, that's when I left. I sort of zapped through it. Yep. I read the end of the plot description on Wikipedia. I found out... I did zap to the end because I thought it was great, because the movie opens brilliantly with Demi Moore's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And dogs are shitting on it, and people are throwing garbage on it.
And then it gets cracked, and,
At the very, very end of the movie, what's left of her, this sludge just crawls on it. It's got Demi Moore's face on it. And she's just looking up at the sky, and this street sweeper just sweeps her up. And just...
Yeah. The way this
it's a Rick and Morty ending.
It is. It basically is. And this is the second film by writer-director Coralie Fargeet, who's
made a movie. I never heard of Revenge.
I did, actually. It's in our Neon box from a few years ago. Yes.
I've never heard of Revenge.
Yeah, it's actually in our Neon box from 2017.
Well, I
haven't seen it, but I knew that it was there. I checked my database, and I do have a copy of Revenge in my collection. So
Well, I will say this: there's more that I liked about The Substance than our last film. Because I didn't give two shits about Wicked.
We might disagree on this. I enjoyed Wicked. I didn't love Wicked.
It's directed by John M. Chu, who made a movie that I liked called Crazy Rich Asians. And he's a good director.
Yeah, he is.
But
I never felt anything.
He also made G.I. Joe Retaliation, so we see why he wasn't nominated for Best Director. Now,
I never got a personal touch from this movie. It feels like it's made by committee.
It's not a personal movie, and it was never going to be a personal movie. This was done for basically
to get butts back in the theaters.
Yeah, I mean, this is let's face it, this is a fever dream for theater kids. And the story's good. And the portrayals are well put out. I appreciate that Elphaba, the Cynthia Erivo character, is basically, she becomes the villain for wanting equality.
Yeah.
And the Wizard of Oz, played by Jeff Goldblum, is basically, he's staying in power by doing the tried and true American thing, is just give them a good enemy to hate, and then I'll stay in power, and everybody will be happy, except for the persecuted ones, of course, but who cares about them? We're supposed to hate them.
I think this movie could have benefited from being on a smaller scale because, first of all, the movie's 2.5 hours long and presents itself in the opening titles as being part one. And, of course, where the movie breaks, where this movie ends, is where the intermission in the Broadway show is. I think that's a lot. I think this movie is asking a lot of its audience. Because this is not a story that really needs to be 4 or 5 hours long.
No.
And I sat there and I thought...
Isn't the book huge, too?
The book is really fat. It's a phone book. But I didn't really see anything that needed to run over 2 hours. I don't remember the songs.
Yeah.
I don't remember... But I thought... My biggest issue is... And I never saw the show. I never read the book. As far as it goes with The Wizard of Oz, I've seen that story. I've seen that movie. I've read the books. I read the books when I was a kid, and I enjoyed them. There's just nothing that I felt needed to be expanded here. I like the twist. I like the ideas, but it just felt like this lumbering giant that's asking me to come back in 12 months.
See, I enjoyed it. I just kind of let it play. I was expecting what I got, which was a huge budget
Brobdingnagian
huge budget studio musical. Yeah, I mean, I got exactly what I wanted, exactly what I expected, with a little social commentary on top, which was.
It's not on top, man. It's
to be sure, but
oh god.
But
I like it when they have it as an understated idea. No, this is batting you in the face with it for the whole thing.
So
her face is green, and it's this racism angle that is just it's beating you with it. It's the same problem that I had. There's a show, I think it's running on Amazon Prime, and it's based on, I forget his name. It's a detective show. It takes place in Washington D.C.
Reacher?
No, not Reacher. Alex Cross.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's so it drags in all of the Black Lives Matter stuff to be woven into every fabric of this show, when all I want to do is just watch a detective show, and it's frustrating.
Well, I appreciate when things try to exceed their genre and give you a little bit more than that. And in America, unfortunately, because of the systemic racism that is just baked into everyday life. Anything that counters that looks like it's racial and political, when it's really just trying to exist beyond a stereotype that people don't understand or know that they hold. So in that case, in this instance here, they're asking a marginalized person to marginalize people, and to be fine with it because it'll benefit her then. But she would always feel like she'd be next because she would be. This basically sets the wizard up as a fascist dictator.
I just wasn't in this movie. I don't know.
I was looking forward to it in the first place, so I didn't fall head over heels with it, but I enjoyed myself.
I had a choice on Christmas Day. It was either this or Nosferatu.
You made the right choice.
And I took it Nosferatu. I made the right choice, and I made the wrong choice too, because I wasn't moved by that one either.
I really liked Nosferatu.
I didn't. I wasn't. I just wasn't in that one.
I saw it at home though. I didn't go to the theater for it. So, but
I just couldn't do Wicked on Christmas Day. It's just me.
So
anyway,
that's all I can say about these. I mean, I could probably trash Emilia Pérez for another 25 or 30 minutes, but there's no need to do that. It's like kicking a dead horse. I mean, it's just. That's pretty much all I have. We are working on getting all of our socials back, but
stay tuned later this week for.
Yes, we're going to be covering A Complete Unknown, so that we have that up there before the Oscars on Sunday, March 2nd. I am really looking forward to how you react to this, because I named my son's middle name as Dylan because of Bob Dylan. So I was already going to love A Complete Unknown. I have some...
It's like Star Wars. You're going to go in loving it.
Exactly. I mean, it's surprising no one. I watched A Complete Unknown, and I'm like, well, that's my favorite movie of the year. Why?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's about fucking Bob Dylan. And it's good. And, it's not afraid to show him being the jerk he was sometimes. Which I appreciate. It's not beholden to the artist, it's beholden to the truth. Well, we'll get to what the truth is in the movie and what isn't. But anyway.
Didn't I tell you a couple of years ago Timothée Chalamet is going to win an Oscar?
Oh, I've been convinced of that since Lady Bird.
Yeah.
I like him. I think he's a good actor.
Yeah.
I think he made... Well, we'll talk about that later when you get to see it. So right now, just hit the like, subscribe, and the notifications buttons there on the YouTube player there, or what have you. We would greatly appreciate that. Share us with your friends. Let us know in the comments if you want to hear us talk about something. We will certainly make every effort to read that comment at some point in the next couple of years and think about doing the movie. We which is how it's been lately from the start. But we if there is a suggestion, we will absolutely move on that a lot faster than we have in the past, which is not at all. So we thank you very much for joining us. And we look forward to the Oscars and sharing our recap with you on that. And again, check us out for A Complete Unknown later in the week. We thank you very much for joining us, and the pod bay doors are now closed.